Technology works until it doesn't. That's what my new friend, Ben Glass, and I were just talking about. Every single time you have everything set up, then something else happens. And for me, today is a special day because I get to have a new friend of mine on the podcast that I've been waiting for the last couple of months. And we were ready, and then we had a scheduling conflict, and then we had another scheduling conflict. And I was telling him this morning that it's easier in my head to ask him what he doesn't do than to ask him what he does do. This is one of the top attorneys in the nation. Also, he does legal marketing and helps small and solo firms to be able to, break the mold and help them to be able to compete in this super loud world. On top of that, he has 2 podcasts, been on 125 podcasts, has written 4 or 5 books. He's got a new one out. No BS Time Management, which we're going to talk about. And I get a chance to be able to spend time with him at NiftyCon, which is coming up. This man is a ball of energy. And the whole question that I had in my head as we're talking is just, why not? This is the question that he'll bring up in every single aspect of what it is that he's doing. Why not? Why not live life to the absolute fullest? So I can't wait for you guys to be able to meet Mr. Ben Glass. This man is absolutely phenomenal. Is going to blow your doors off, not only with legal marketing, but also just as a human being. So why don't we get this party started?
Kelly,
achieving, cause we believing it's for certain. We put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting right before your eyes. So it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Mr. Ben Glass. Now tell me these: long-term disability insurance claims, legal marketing, and soccer. How do those things go together, Ben?
Well, it goes back to the question that you said you wanted to ask, which is, what does this guy not do? And, Kelly, I have carved out of my life things that I don't like doing. They're gone. People I don't like dealing with, they're gone. I'm 66. People ask me, when are you going to retire? I kind of like what I do. So pretty much the things that you would see me do in a week are things that I like doing. So I'm blessed there, but I've worked to get there. I've worked to create a life, dad to 9, soccer referee. I'm just having fun. We're mostly having fun. Like, you could peek inside the window of our house and you could see chaos every once in a while. Businesses, chaos. Right? But that's what entrepreneurs do. We create chaos and we build people up. So I'm really thrilled to be here. It was great to chat with you, sort of pre-going live. And then you and I both have a lot of energy, I think. You probably more than me because you're younger. But I'm looking forward to getting together with you in Salt Lake in a couple of weeks. We'll both be speaking at a legal marketing conference, which is really my space. But really, Kelly, so we were saying before we went live, like, our space, I think, is inspiring people to see the possibilities of what they could do with their lives, no matter where they are today. Like, there is a next step, a next investment of your time or your money into something that can draw you closer to being able to say, this is a really cool ride. Like, it's really fun to be on this ride.
So take me to the long-term disability insurance claims. Like, I find that when a person has a passion or a focal point, maybe something has happened or something inspired them down that road. What led you to that type of law?
Yeah, so our practice, we do car accidents in Virginia, we do long-term disability insurance claims nationwide. And the LTD, we call it for short, that was an accident. Like 25 years ago, one of these cases came to me. I just thought it was a regular insurance case. It really wasn't. It's got a lot of federal regulation. But here's what this is not. It's not Social Security disability. It's not other kinds of disability. It's if you work for a company you've got a disability insurance policy. If something happens to you, you get sick, you're injured, you can't get work, or you can't work, like there's a policy to be paid. And a lot of times the insurance companies say no. I've sent 7 kids to college. 7 of my 9 kids have gone to college, Kelly, because of stupid decisions insurance companies make, and we beat them up all over the country. So I mainly work with entrepreneurs, physicians, CEOs, CFOs who've got something going on in their life that's now preventing them from doing what they were born to do. And I help walk them through the process.
How about with the legal marketing part? Because this is a part that a lot of times doesn't mix, right? So attorneys, and I've talked with my brother about this, where sometimes attorneys, they don't think that they have to market, that they have to bring that those things because they see the shiny. You see bad examples, not bad examples of it, but different types of examples.
You do see bad examples.
How does a solo firm or a small firm, how do they market but stay true to who they actually are?
Yeah, so everything in my life is a mindset problem first, Kelly. And what I say to lawyers who have any hesitancy whatsoever about going out and advertising and marketing is this. I ask them, are you a good lawyer? Like everybody's going to say, yeah, I'm a good lawyer. And then I say, Kelly, is there someone in your community even for whom you would be the best lawyer for their situation today? They're always going to say yes, because there is someone who you are uniquely born to help. Then why would we let that person wander into another law firm that's not going to be as good as you are for their problem? And whether you've been practicing for a month or like me for 40 years, there's somebody that you are uniquely set up to help. So we start there. The lawyers I coach in Great Legal Marketing, Kelly, are not the lawyers who are spending tens of thousands of dollars a month on either digital ad spend or traditional advertising. I mean, there's a space for everybody. So I help, what I say is I help mom and pa who are growing great practice. I help them to create a great life by creating a great practice and figure out what's the marketing that will drive that great practice. And so, across the consumer facing spectrum from personal injury to disability to criminal law and workers' comp and family law and all those areas, like we help them compete with these 800-pound gorillas that are everywhere. And it has become a lot harder because, my goodness, the amount of money in lawyer advertising and marketing is unbelievably huge. I mean, people think they know, but they have no idea like what's actually going on behind the scenes. It's unbelievably huge, but everybody can compete, and I help them find their unique message and their unique reason for being, and who we should be trying to attract to walk in the door as a potential client. That's my superpower.
How did you how did you connect with that as far as the marketing side? When did it become important to you? Was there a pain point that you then had to solve early on in your career that led you into the marketing side also?
Yeah, so I had a very traditional beginning, went to law school, got a job at a law school with some good trial lawyers. They weren't very good business people, but they were good trial lawyers. And I learned a ton for 12, 13 years, got the entrepreneurial itch, start my own practice, took some cases, started my own practice. Like many people who start any kind of a business, right? The baker who bakes good cookies and wants to start a bakery, I quickly figured out that being a good lawyer wasn't good enough. And so I was a real fan of the success literature. And so I would, back in the day, audio tapes and books from Nightingale Conant and Zig Ziglar. And in that world, I ran into a guy named Dan Kennedy, and I bought his thing. And I, to make a very long story short, I didn't understand half of what Dan was saying in the product that he sent me, his magnetic marketing product. But I was smart enough or fortunate enough to say, but if I could understand this, like it would change my life. And so I started implementing, I started going to conferences, investing a lot of money in myself and my own education, changed the practice around, and then realized that this was really something that the lawyers that I've just described who are not spending $1 bazillion on TV, and there was no internet back, when I started, there was no internet. It was Yellow Pages and TV, basically. I started to, at the encouragement of Dan Kennedy and some others, started to just bring this to the lawyer world. And it started very small, teaching advertising to personal injury lawyers. And now it's morphed into something that's very big, where we teach them, not only how to get more leads and convert the leads, but that creates, as you know, all sorts of problems. Like you have growth and scaling and people and culture. And so we coach lawyers. We don't sell websites. We don't sell products or services per se. Like, we're helping lawyers figure out, like, what should I do next? Who should I team up with for web, for newsletters, for technology? We help them figure that out so they can live a great life. So I'm full-time practicing lawyer, I guess full-time coach, full-time dad to 9, an author. And actually, I've got probably about 17 or 18 books, both books for the practice, but also all sorts of books about business, motivation, about living. We kind of stole the brand, or adopted the brand, Live Life Big, because you just never know how long you have, man. So let's live it and enjoy if we can.
Well, you talked about a bypass just recently. We were talking about that before we started. Did that give you a different kind of perspective, or have you always been on this kind of journey as far as live life big, live it to the fullest right now?
Yeah. So to tell folks, in March of this year, with a new physician and some testing that was ambiguous, I ended up finding out that I had pretty severe cardiac disease. So that reinforced my thinking on this. It really didn't change anything. And I was fully confident in my physicians, but it just was a reminder that you don't really know how many days you have. And, literally 2 weeks before I had my surgery, a friend of mine who's a year older, he didn't have surgery. He died. Like, he just woke up one morning, he died of cardiac disease. Wow. So that's pretty sobering. And I think, the night before the surgery, I also made a commitment that I would have the fastest return ever to CrossFit and soccer refereeing. I referee high school and youth soccer, and I did. And I charted it, and I've people who follow me on TikTok, I've charted almost every week, and in the beginning, almost every day of that recovery, to motivate other people to let them know, get screened, get testing. Like, it's important. It's a badass disease, right? But also to let them know, like, you can chart a path to success, consult with experts, but at the end of the day, it's like the man or woman you see in the mirror is the most important person on these journeys. Like, who are you? Are you going to grow? Like, there's no end to. You can get education any place, as we were talking before we went live. But what's going on inside your own psyche, your own head, who you hang out with, like, those are really critical factors, I think, in whether your life is going to be happy or not, no matter what you choose to do.
Let's take it into the personal injury part. So in the personal injury, what are some of the top blind spots that solo and small firms have when it comes to, the business that is possible?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is just under recognizing the value of the people that you have working for you. So, for example, you can have the best website in the world. You can have great digital marketing. You have a kick butt TV ad. If you don't have a team who believes that you are the right choice, that you are the best thing in your location for someone who's been, in our case, injured, then it just doesn't matter. Like, because the whole customer experience, the client experience, from the time they reach out to you to the end of the case, is mainly driven by your people. And they have to believe that they are working in a place that actually makes a difference to people's lives. And so, Kelly, like, most lawyers, they don't think down to that level, because they're like, all right, who can get me the most leads at the cheapest lead acquisition cost? But then they're weighed down, honestly, by these anchors of having a team that's not fully invested in this belief that I've just described. Now, doesn't mean it's easy, but we have hundreds and hundreds of lawyers at Great Legal Marketing who understand this and who go for this, who work on this thing first, the culture of the firm. Like, is this a good place for people to come to work? Do they like showing up on Monday? Because if you have that, you can get by with even mediocre marketing. It doesn't have to be the best. But if you have the best marketing and you don't have the right people, then you're wasting money. So that, I think, that is undervalued. I think that, from the technology perspective, this is a constantly changing world with Google controlling, so much, and full credit to them. Like, they built a great company that controls the internet. Like, good for them. But having someone either in your team or trusted outsourced vendors who can help you stay up to date with what you need to do, whether it's websites, social media, lead funnels, landing pages, like, that's really, really important too. But again, the phones don't get answered the right way, you're just wasting your money.
Take us through too, because I think people have the tendency to group advertising, PR, and marketing into, they think it all is just the same thing. When in your expert opinion, what is the difference that you see in it, and how could a person see it from a perspective where it starts to make sense to them?
So understand, the principle to understand is all of your advertising, which is, hey, message to media, it's out there into the world, falls on deaf ears if you didn't have an accident yesterday. If it's anything, driving in today, there's a commercial that runs locally for, if you have a squirrel running around in your attic. Well, if you don't actually have a squirrel running around your attic, like, your brain doesn't even hear that. So all that advertising message is just simply not heard. But what is heard? What is remembered? Oh, Ben, the brand of Ben, 9 kids, CrossFit, soccer referee, sportsmanship, advocacy guy. Oh yeah, he happens to be a lawyer. I may not even remember like what kind of law he does, but if I have a legal problem, I'm going to call Ben because I trust him, because he's everywhere in an authentic way. And look, and this sounds like bragging, but I'm telling you, everybody, like, this is the goal for those of us who don't have millions and millions of dollars to spend on, quote, advertising. So it's a difference between paying to get a message out and being an authentic person and being memorable, all the way down to, Kelly, we run a really cool, we have an 8-page print newsletter from the law firm that I'll just show up here on the screen for a sec. And I know that my articles on living, on kiddos going off to college, on building wealth, get cut out and pasted up on refrigerators. That's real branding. That makes you memorable and keeps you top of mind. Even if they don't know exactly what I do, they trust us enough to give us a call first. And our Rolodex is big. Like, so if you're calling us about family law, we don't know anything about that, but we know who the guys and gals are who are respected authorities. So I think that's the biggest difference. And it's a really good news for those who can't, like, if you can spend the most in a market, that's great. That works for sure. Awesome. And there's people that do that. Great. But that's not most of us. That's one who can only be the top spender in a market. So the rest of us are trying to figure out, how do we break through the clutter? And I'm telling them, be yourself, be your authentic self. Do what you say you'll do. Don't be like Ben version 1 over here and Ben version 2, which is completely opposite over here, because they're going to figure that out. Like that's most politics, right? Like, I'm sort of apolitical. Like their whole principle of living is, can I get a vote, right? Mine is like, now I'm going to show you how to live life big. Kelly, the other thing is, most of my conversations with clients, like, we're good at the legal stuff, right? But I have life coaching conversations. Like, what's going to, after the case is over, you've been sick or injured, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. After the case is over, what are we going to do next? I'm here. Like, I've got a bazillion ideas, a bazillion friends, like, who can help you move forward. So that's a ton. You asked a very short question.
That's good.
It's complicated, but it's as I say, it's as simple and as complex as all of that. And what lawyers need, I think, what our lawyers get at Great Legal Marketing is just, you're surrounded by a group of people, and what you'll see at NiftyCon, like, mostly people who like believe this philosophy. Uh-huh. They may not always know how to get there, but that's what we do. We help them get there. We help them be brave, because lawyers, Kelly, this will shock your listeners. They're pretty shy. They don't like to talk about like insider stuff, like triple bypass surgery.
Yeah.
And they don't really, most of them are uncomfortable in front of a camera. Like, you wouldn't believe that, actually, but because you see a couple lawyers in your market who are on TV, but most lawyers are too shy. And so as a result of that, they just blend in. And when you have a business, like, just blending in is no good. Like, that leads you to average, and we don't want to be average.
So with this living life big concept, like, where did this come from, and where did you learn it? Like, the making of Ben Glass, not the lawyer, but the guy who grew up. Was it lessons from family? Was this aunts and uncles? Was this parents, grandparents? What was it?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I grew up, so I was the oldest of seven in a very loving family. My dad was an engineer. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. This is the 60s in Northern Virginia. Um, and so these really weren't discussions around our dinner table. We had a very typical smack dab in the middle class, great neighborhood. NFL players came out, MLB players came out of our neighbor, like literally our street. Um, and so it didn't come there. I think in the last 25 years, I have learned so much from reading the success literature of the late 1800s and the early 1900s, number one, but more importantly, Kelly, hanging out with people who are a little bit farther along the growth curve, the personal development growth curve than I am. Mastermind groups, other groups of entrepreneurs who get it. And I learned so much from them. And what you discover is, I think that no matter how you define success, but I think part of success is, hey, I'm happy with the stuff I'm doing, right? Doesn't matter. Like, you could have billions and be unhappy. That would not be a fun place to be. Um, but those of us who are quote unquote successful in business, but more importantly, are happy with our lives, I think tend to have this abundance minded view. Like everything I see in the world I see it as positive or potentially positive. There's a lot of sadness in the world, a lot of things I can't control. There's a ton of stuff I can control, like how I respond to things. And so hanging out with people, I think that's how you get, it's a great question. I think that's how you get to Ben. Who is Ben? Now, I've been accused of being like overly optimistic, and I'm guilty of that. Like we can be at a leadership meeting in the law firm and, the wheels are falling off someplace. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's just a puzzle that needs to be solved. Like, okay, let's figure it out. And then we'll write about it and we'll share it someplace. So there's learning from that. It takes a while to get there. I think, but the biggest thing for me is hanging out with people who are farther along that journey than I am and who are willing to share. Like I always want to know, Kelly, how do you think? Like you have a lot of strategies, tactics, for life. I'm more interested in how do you think? How do you deal? We'll talk maybe in Salt Lake. We'll have some time together. How do you deal with problems? What happens when the wheels are falling off some part of your life? Like, who do you turn to? Who do you read? Who inspires you? That's what I want to know.
When you went on the personal development kind of journey, what were some of the principles that you read about or that you came in contact with that drove home? Maybe it wasn't the things that your parents said, but what you watched them do in your family.
Yeah. So my family is a very loving family. So my mom never said anything bad about anyone. When she passed away several years ago, she had like 300, she was 83, 84 years old. Had 300 people come into her funeral, into the post-funeral luncheon, because she was always very kind and she was always very curious. So when you had an interaction with her, like you knew that you were heard. She, even if she disagreed, like fundamentally disagreed with whatever you were talking about, you didn't really feel that in her. So I did get that from mom. It's like she never met a stranger. I think moving out of family and into reading the personal development literature, Stephen Covey's Be Proactive, which doesn't mean, hey, do things before you're asked. Like it means I own the space in between the stimulus, the thing that is happening to me, and my response. I have oftentimes little control over the thing that is happening to me. I have complete dominion and control over my response to that thing. Okay. That changes everything, because you can either like be totally pissed off about something, right? Or you can say, that's interesting. Where's the learning here? What's the universe trying to teach me? How can I show love and kindness? Doesn't mean I'm a walkover, because I'm not. Like I'm a good trial lawyer and I'm, not going to let you walk over me. But I think there's a win-win to come out of just about every situation that the world presents you. And so being able to pause and go, and oftentimes it's just like that, like, okay, that's interesting. Now, how are we going to respond to that? And you will just, I tell you, you will spread more goodness into the world when you're able to respond versus simply reacting. to the quote, to the bad stuff that happens to you. I'm not perfect. Like, look, I get it. But there's a huge difference between fiery redhead, short-tempered Ben, the soccer player at 16, and 66-year-old Ben, the referee, who's oftentimes says, "Oh, everybody yelling at him." I'm like, okay, maybe I missed that. Okay, we'll watch the video later. But it's just a game.
You said something earlier, Ben. You said, we were talking about it, and you said, I'm a full-time referee. I'm a full-time, I own the agency as far as the marketing, and then I'm a full-time lawyer. How have you been able to work through and focus in each area without the other one bleeding in, pulling from your time?
Well, I didn't say that I bleed in. So here's the distinction that I would make, right? It's not work-life balance. It is life. We are living life. One journey, no control over who you're born to, when you're born, some control over the end through your life habits, but you just never know how many days you have, right? And so I say to people, when they ask me that question, I say, I don't know, like follow me around for a week and see if you can tell what's play and what's work. You won't be able to tell entirely what's play and what's work. And so, yes, look, there are times when we're focused on a case, right? And on a particular case, and I'm solving the problem for the client. That's what I'm paid to do, is to be creative, to solve the problem or look for the opportunity for the client. And you just do that. I have, and one of the things we talk about in No BS Time Management for Entrepreneurs, Kennedy and I, is how do we build systems, structures, and people that can wall us off when we need to wall off. So, someone else manages my calendar and my email. My phone does not ding, vibrate, beep, or anything, right? Yes, some days I show up at home without the milk my wife wanted me to pick up because I missed the message. But we are masters at controlling these interruptions because there's so much science about, when you get interrupted and you're in deep work, how long it actually takes you to get back on track. And so we've got, I haven't taken an inbound unplanned phone call for over 25 years, right? Everything has to be done my way by appointment. It's actually better for you. If you're a client, Kelly, and you want to talk to me, terrific. My team will find out what it is you want to talk about. They'll get the documents I need to review. We'll set up a time specific. We'll both be there and we'll both be totally focused, paying attention. Versus you have some question, you just pick up the phone and call me. And most lawyers like answering the call. Like I'm in the middle of writing somebody else's brief or doing a podcast with you, and someone wants to know the answer to the question. My answer isn't going to be very good because I'm not prepared for the call and I'm rushed. So we're able to deliver a very high level of customer service. You can talk to me if you need to. My team handles most things. So most questions are actually procedural questions, process questions, not legal strategy questions. But if we want to talk legal strategy, we'll have time. We'll be able to do it. You have access to me. That was a real game changer, Kelly, in the first edition of No BS Time Management, which I read 25 years ago. I ran to the phone booth. That's how long ago it was. Told my team, like, we're doing this by appointment only. Like no one's ever going to be able to just call up and talk to Ben. And so again, that's how you do it. That's how achievers achieve, is we are ruthless. Ruthless doesn't mean mean. Ruthless means we pay attention. We are ruthless about protecting our time because, Kelly, like you can't steal my wallet, but I let you steal my time. Like lining up outside the door. Hey, I just got to question you for a minute, or I just need a little bit of your time. BS. We'll make that happen, but it'll be by appointment. A lot of people, when they hear this, they'll say, no, that's impossible. You don't understand. My business is different. I'm like, dude, I'm doing it in law. Like if I can do it in law, then you can do it in your business too. You can't call up your cardiac surgeon whenever you want and go, hey doc, I have this little question about, my heartbeat. That doesn't happen. The surgeon has surrounded herself with great, highly qualified team who loves to be there, who believes that their mission is totally good for humanity, who can serve me, who can answer my questions.
What do you wish that your clients knew before they actually needed you?
Yeah, so I wish they knew more about insurance law, like whether you're doing something as simple as how much car insurance should I buy, to like there's all sorts of long-term disability policies. If they knew what I knew before they made the purchase, they oftentimes would not need me. So I am oftentimes fixing the mistake of, oh, you thought that saving 15% on your car insurance was a good deal? Well, and you thought that they were selling you full coverage. let me show you what my family buys for maybe $150 more a year than what your family buys, but provides 30 times as much protection. Like, that's what I wish you knew. So we do a lot of education on that. But again, so what we talked about earlier, if you don't have an insurance problem, you're not listening to my education because you think, okay, 15%.
Compare and contrast. You talked about thinking, like the way that you think, and you alluded to the fact that we get to spend some time at NiftyCon, and you wanted to ask me that question. I want to ask you that question. Let's compare and contrast young Ben, the way he thought, in the middle Ben, the way he thought, to now Ben, the way you think.
That's a really, really good question. I think that young Ben never set aside time for thinking. Young Ben was, because I was working for somebody else for one thing, right? And so when you're new into a profession or a business, you are learning so much. You are taking direct, and that's the job of someone who's an employee. You are taking the direction and doing the task. There was little need to be able to think, to just have what I would call pure thinking time. Middle Ben is learning, oh man, there's this whole world out there of people who are thinking about the process of thinking, right? I was a philosophy major in college, but I think I would love to go back to college in Northern Virginia as seniors. Like, we can actually go to college at George Mason for free. Like, I want to go back and do those classes at some point, because having experience in the world, you would now see that class all differently. But young Ben is thinking, oh my gosh, I'm starting to read this literature, but I don't understand it. And I don't have anybody to talk to about it because no one else my age was even reading the literature, right? And so young Ben is middle Ben is really curious about the philosophy of thinking, I guess you call it, the philosophy of life. Doesn't have anybody to discuss it with. Ben today sets aside I read probably 75 books. I'm talking real books, even in addition to what I might listen to on Audible or something. And not every book deserves to get read to the end, Kelly, but I still exposed myself to, the biographies and autobiographies of people who have built things, who built cool stuff. I have a book called, I think it's called the Prosperity Bible. Now, it's not like a religious prosperity theology. It is the collection of writings from the late 1800s, early 1900s. These thinkers, right? Napoleon Hill, Ben Franklin, people like this. Today, Ben puts aside time. Like, I need time to deliberately think. Like Bill Gates, best thing ever. Like, the thing I learned from him is go away for a week. Now, I've not mastered this yet because I still have kiddos, but go away for a week just to a cabin, take some books and a pad, and just think. Like, leave your device at home and just think. And what we do when we do that is, like, we're all busy. Everybody's busy, and the doers of the world get asked to do more all the time, Kelly. And that can be an overwhelming responsibility. And I think what you need is the guts to say no. This isn't in my zone of genius. It would be perfect for somebody else. I like to do things that are in my zone of genius, which are really inspiring other people, to having good discussions like what we're having right now. Like, that's my space to play. I happen to be a very good lawyer, I'm a good referee, and I can coach lawyers. But really, really, Kelly, what I'm doing is showing you, your listeners, and anyone that will listen, there's this group of people who have learned to think, to be brave about saying no to people and things that no longer serve our lives, and to realize that's okay. That's actually the way the world is supposed to be. Because when we play at our highest level and we're spiritually, mentally, physically, financially fit, right? We serve the world in ways that young Ben could not serve the world just by doing. So old Ben serves the world better, I think, today than young Ben or middle Ben. So that's been the process. But I've never thought that. I've never had anyone ask me that question in literally hundreds and hundreds of interviews. That's a really good question. Yeah.
Well, then hopefully I'll follow it up with another good one. Or my wife said that out of 100 ideas that I have, only one of them works out, but that one works out really well. So probably 99 are coming at you that are going to be bad. I'm joking with you.
She has to put up with you the way Sandy put up with me. And
exactly.
yeah.
Help me with this, because I just had a discussion. We had our men's group. I got a guy in my men's group, and he reached out to me the other day, and he was asking about, like, how do I know what is right? and that was a big question, right? It was a large question. Take us into the mind of Ben Glass, the genius. When something comes across your table, what is the process for you to take it down, to decipher and to discern whether that's right or not for you?
So let me just ask a clarifying question. Do you mean whether it's the right thing to go and get involved in, or, for example, we just had a meeting where it's like, all right, client has a problem, she's done something stupid. Like, how do we respond to her? Like, what's the morally, ethically, business correct way? Because I think those are two different questions. I can answer both.
Yeah, do both. Start with whichever one you'd like.
Yeah, so I believe that each one of us is born with a very unique set of gifts, talents, and interests. No one in the world has your set. No one has ever had your unique set. I believe that these are God-given gifts, talents, and interests. They may change over time for sure. I think our job is to take those things, that combination, and now put energy into the world. Like, that's what we're asked to do. So my funny story is, I'm not a tool guy. I'm not a build it guy. Home Depot gives me the hides, right? That's not my thing. I'd rather pay someone for whom his or her gift, talent, and interest is to build stuff. I'd rather pay them, overpay them. I know it'll get done right. I make their life better. I make my life better because I'm not like banging the wrench against the pipe. That's just me. And I know that's, a lot of guys like, oh, I got to go build something. Like, that's not me. I'll build it in my head first. So I think that discerning your gifts, talents, and interests, like what turns you on, what would be not work for you, and what will the market pay for that? Because that's important, because you got to eat. Man has to produce in order to eat. The other one, I think, is like, what's the right thing to do? I think it is important to develop life principles, including who you will deal with, how you will deal with other people. I always look first for a win-win relationship. So if we have a vendor or somebody who wants to team up with us, I tell them, look, I'm going to help you make your next $1 million. Hopefully, I want you to be interested in my business, what we're trying to achieve here. So what we can do win-win. And a lot of people tell you there's no such thing as win-win. No, there is. Like, every place, I buy an iPhone because I think it's going to make my life better. And Apple develops and sells it because they think it's going to make their life better. Great. Nothing wrong with that. I think that, the standard is just the right thing to do is, first of all, for me, I'm going to have my team's back, right? So my team is more valuable than my clients. My team is going to be with me for a long time. So if you're calling to complain about my team and I go listen to the recordings of the calls and you've been a jerk, you're going to lose. We're going to send you the list of other lawyers in town. I think I try to be very kind. So here's something you'll be interested in. So 4 of our 9 children are adopted from China. 2 lived in pretty harsh orphanages and came to us. We didn't know it at the time. It came to us a very significant rewiring of their brain because of the hard orphanages. So we searched out experts around the country on the subject of early childhood trauma and brain development. And this is what we learned, is that everybody out there, Kelly, like, the way they're reacting to you, the way they're reacting to the world actually is a product of their life experience. Like, no one is born mean. No one is born racist. No one is born bad. They just aren't. Little babies are not born that way. But because of their life environment, like, they can turn out to be reactive, quote, bad people. Doesn't mean you have to be aware, but it means that every time that something is happening, like, there's something behind it. So our clients who maybe get irritated with us, first we're going to ask, because they're all sick or injured, their lives are hard. Like, all right, maybe there's something driving that, a brain injury, financial, they're squeezed financially, their lives are really stressful. So we try to be very cognizant of that. Like, what's going on in their life? How can we show kindness? Again, we have rules. You can't abuse my team. That's an example I often use. You have to play nice with us. But I get it. Like, you haven't worked. You are financially squeezed because of your illness or your injury. Like, I try to really understand that. And a lot of times I will tell these people the story that I just told you about the kids, like what we have learned. And so that helps. They now see you more as a human being. They see you as someone they're not just going to take out their anger on. So that helps. So that was a long rant. I can't even remember what I was asking, but I think that in terms of what's right and what's wrong, there's always an experience behind the action that the other is bringing to the table. And again, we're going to pause. We're going to control the interval between the stimulus and the response, and we're going to respond. And we try to respond in a loving way, even if we disagree with you. Like if we were doing business, I have many people in the world who are ex-business partners. Just we were, and then we weren't. I think for the most part, we're still friends, right? Because we're open and honest about what the level of disagreement is or what we're looking for. Oftentimes, Kelly, the people that get you to one level are not the people that can get you to the next level. That's life in the fast lane. It's neither good nor bad. That's just life. So I have these long answers for philosophy.
They're amazing. They're amazing ones. No, but let's go down that rabbit hole of there's people that'll take you to this level that won't so much get you to the other level, but loyalty a lot of times will keep us. Hey, this person started off with me. They maybe got me to the middle. I'm going to stick with that person. And then when you start to fly high, they start to come apart because the altitude that you take them to. How did you learn that?
The hard way, like most entrepreneurs. And by that I mean is you maintain the relationship for longer than is good for you. And if it's not good for you, it's not good for them. So here's what many business owners will say. Joey is great at what Joey does. Joey is a rock star. He's number one in this department. Let's make Joey a manager. Yeah. Joey doesn't have the skill set to be a manager. It doesn't light Joey on fire. Joey, if he's a salesperson, he likes to sell. And so it is a mistake often to think that someone who's good at one level can operate at the next level. And then what happens is you put them there, neither side is party, and you and Joey, you separate from each other. Well, that's no good. So, and the other thing is, as companies grow, especially the companies that I work with, the law firms, they grow. They start mom and pa and one assistant, right? And when you get through certain dollar levels, get through your 500K, your million, your 3 million, your 5 million top line revenue, which are kind of the firms we typically work with, you're needing new people. And again, it's not mean. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. And the faster that the owner, founder, CEO can learn how to have a hard discussion that says, Kelly, man, it's been great, but this just is not a great place for you anymore. And it should never be a surprise. If I'm having that discussion with you, it really shouldn't be a surprise, because I know I've done everything I can to lift you up, to give you opportunities to run with us, right? Whatever training, coaching you need, like we can make that available. Yeah. But a lot of times it just gets into a skill set that's not yours. And your job, Kelly, is now to go find your next place that where your level of growth, development, education, and training is perfect for that law firm. And my job is to attract the next person who can play at that next level. That's why it's so important, I think, that law firms in particular be hiring ahead. Like, we can show you how to market. We can show you how to get more clients, cases, better cases, more money, raise your fees, all of that stuff. Now you have to be working on that next road. You have to be digging the path and laying the asphalt for what happens when we get you there, because now the cars move faster. And if you don't, then it'll cause, like, the last thing we want to do is cause more stress, because we've helped you build a case flow, client acquisition flow that's not supported by your current systems and people. And it is one of the hardest things, because what are we doing? We're working in small groups, small firms. Everybody knows everybody. And it's sad. I'll tell you that it gets easier. And again, I don't think this is mean, but it gets easier and easier to be able to make that decision and to have that discussion and to realize that it's best for you and it is best for them. Because nothing worse than working in a place where you're over your head, right? And every day is now stressful for you as the employee, because you just don't have the skill set to run at this new level of running. Doesn't make it easy. Like, the stuff we do is not easy, Kelly, at all. Like, it's hard to be an owner. It's hard. You carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. That's one of the things I'll be telling the lawyers in Salt Lake. It's like, so be proud to be you. You are important to the world. But there's a way to develop these win-win relationships with employees. So we'll talk a little bit about that, like team building, team acquisition. Team acquisition is more important than client acquisition, frankly.
Wow. So with the solo and the smaller firms, what are some of the major pain points that you see? I was just talking with my buddy Rob in our men's group today. I referred to him earlier, and he's in law enforcement. And what I said to him is, I said, we were talking, and I said, there's probably about 4 or 5 profiles of people that you deal with that you could pretty much group everyone into. Now, I know that's going to be insensitive and things like that. And I said that there's going to be the outliers, but there's probably 4 or 5. And he looked at me and he was like, probably 3. And what I find in every business, especially when you get to a mastery level like yourself, you can see these things a little clearer, right? So what are some of those things that the small and solos deal with that are in common with each other, that they think they're out on an island?
Here's the biggest problem. It's ego. Kelly, nobody could talk to a client as good as I can. No one can write a brief as good as I can. No one can write an email or whatever, make their coffee as good as I can. Kelly, if I have to train someone, it's just going to take some of my time. It's not going to be the exact same process I would use, and I'm just the smartest. And that thinking has to change, because A, you're not the smartest, right? You just aren't. B, again, you were born, you have gifts, talents, and interests. It's not all of those things. For the lawyers, I think it's like being creative. Here's the client's problem or opportunity. Wow, what's the most efficient win-win solution for the client, whoever they're up against? Like, how do we think about that? So a common denominator is ego. It's human problem. I will tell you that once you get good at shift your ego aside for a little bit and learn how to delegate really well, that is an addicting drug. You will find, oh my gosh, this really does work. Oh, I can train somebody else. In our case, we have 6 working for us we have 22 under roof. We have 6 of them are working in the Philippines. Fabulous people who have each one of them has a zone of genius, something that they're really good at. And we are learning to delegate better, to have closer positive feedback loops, to work with people who are 12 hours apart from us time-wise. So that's the first thing, I think, is getting ego out of the way, learning to delegate. I think the other thing is you have to have some willingness to, once you understand delegation and the power of it, a willingness to invest. Oh, I do need this person. Seems like it's a little expensive, but we forget, if someone is a $60,000 a year employee, all of it's not due next Monday, right? It's just, we don't pay them like for the whole year in advance. So dividing that down into what is it actually costing me a day? Okay, can I go get another case that will help fill that in? So being aggressive again, because what do we said is the most important? Like, the people that are working for you, like, that's the most important thing. Then I think systems, and then we can go get the clients that can feed the economics of it. But always looking and saying, wow, that person who served me at the restaurant, wow, like, personality, great, helpful, great. Gee, wonder if they've ever thought about working in an office for a law firm. being curious about people. I love to have conversations. My team knows every meal I have, like I know the server's story. I get it from them. Like you can ask curious questions. So those are two big ego, I think hiring ahead. And then the third one, if you want to go there, is holding the vendors accountable. All right, if I'm going to hire you and you're going to run digital marketing, for example, how are we going to count? How are we going to know? Like, because my joke is, you're going to get me followers, more followers? Awesome. Can I pay you in followers? If I go to the bank with followers, will the bank deposit followers? No, I deal in money. Like, I need money, right? So we need to have accurate thinking about metrics when we're dealing with vendor partners. And what does done look like? And what does a win look like? If you and I are going to do business together and you're going to sell me a service that's going to get me more clients, whatever, we're going to have a very clear picture at the beginning of what winning looks like, so that we'll have something objectively, Kelly, to measure your work, my response to your work, that, that whole feedback loop. And again, these are discussions that too many small businesses and lawyers are as guilty as anybody. They skip these discussions, right? Oh, it's only X dollars per month. Great, let's do it with an ill-defined. What does winning look like?
What are some of the mishaps with the metrics part? Because, as a business owner, talking with different business owners, a lot of times they don't want to divulge certain information, but if they don't, then the person doesn't understand the metrics. And if they don't understand the metrics, they actually can't hit those things and create the efficiencies that causes the profit margin in the first place.
Well, look, if you're hiring someone and you're unwilling to disclose what that vendor needs to know, then I think you're an idiot. Like that's a marriage born to fail, right? It just has to. Like how can we do this? So again, the hang up is either fake metrics or the wrong metrics. And if I'm hiring a vendor partner to work with me, I need someone who I'm comfortable with. Here's the game we're playing. Here's what's a win for us. Here's what we're trying to achieve. Here's what we've tried in the past and either it worked or it didn't work. Here's how the last 5 guys who sat in your seat failed me. And so if you do any of these 5 things, you're out. It's like, let's have these hard discussions up front. Just like if you're, I guess, I'm married 43 years, so I don't have any recent experience in this, but if you're into a new relationship, like there's a lot of things you want to know before you make that bond, a contractual bond in marriage or business.
Well,
so
let's take it, Ben, let's take it out of the vendor part and take it to your team, because I think a lot of times, the business owner sometimes doesn't communicate to their team the metrics and what the metrics actually mean, because most people who work in an organization, let's call it a law firm or any business, they only see top line revenue. They say, oh, wow, our company did $1 million, $3 million, $5 million. Yeah. We're doing fine. But they're not understanding the EBITDA. They're not understanding that part of it. How do you communicate that to the team?
Yeah. So look, there's going to be certain levels of disclosure. Let's just be honest. Depending on where a team member is in the hierarchy, but everyone should have a number, right? Everyone. So if it's in our world, medical collections clerk, well, X number of records that we are trying to get should be acquired within X number of days. And that's your number that you're accountable for. And if you're not hitting that, let me know. Maybe you need some coaching. Maybe we've started with the wrong number, things like that. The higher up the chain you go, so your leadership team has more broad view of the numbers, and then equity owners will have the most view of the most numbers. I want team members who are excited about whatever position they're in. They're excited about their number. Again, it's not always a financial number for them, but having some objective thing that we are shooting for that's well thought out. And here's, communicated back and forth. But so let me give you, and I'm going to talk about this in Salt Lake, the most important question you can ever ask a team member. And it takes courage to ask this question, because you got to listen to the answer. Kelly, if you were working for me, the question I would ask you is, Kelly, how can I make this perfect for you? And I would say, Kelly, look, I can't guarantee that I can make this perfect for you. But if you don't know, working with Ben, what perfect would be for you, and you have not communicated that to me, then what are we shooting for? It's just a job. It's just an 8 to 5 job where you've got certain things to do, whatever. I want to build a place. My son, Brian, and I built a law firm where people will thrive. We learned this in COVID. What are the rules for a worldwide pandemic? Well, neither one of us had ever been in a worldwide pandemic. We had people here who had childcare issues. We had a ton of space, so it was safe to come into work. We were kind of protected class because we were lawyers. But the question we asked was, Kelly, we don't know. We don't know the answers. What would be perfect for you in terms of a working relationship now when the world is shut down? And we listened to that. So you have to be willing to listen, and you have to follow that up. Look, I can't guarantee it, but the biggest challenge with that question, Kelly, is that no one has ever asked them that question before. So they think it's BS, or they haven't thought it out for themselves. Again, this gets back to what you and I talked about a few minutes ago. It's like thinking, Ben, right? I'm giving you permission to think about, as you grow here, what would be perfect. We have people that are working here short term because they're going to go to law school, short term because they've if they're going to have a family, and maybe once they start a family, they want to be there fully supportive for their family, as my mom was. All right, different goals. Let's just talk about that. Let's work for win-win. And all the way, we're building playbooks, right? We're building best practices systems for the law firm, so that when it comes time for you to leave, either because we've sent a lot of people out into the world to bigger, better jobs, right? That's sad when somebody good, really good goes. But again, that's life. And we can't have it each way. We can't say we're building a place where people will thrive and then be miserable when someone thrives and goes and finds a bigger, better place for them. So it gets back to this is complicated work that we do, the entrepreneur does. My job is to give talks like this, show people the possibilities. I never tell people how to live their lives, because it's not my role. But I show them the possibilities of how life could be lived in pretty much joy and happiness. And if they want, we walk the journey with them. Like, we have members and at different levels and stuff like that. Clients, of course, we'll walk the journey with them. That's what I was born to do.
Ben, I started the podcast because of my two kids, Maddox, who's 12 years old, a little sports guy, and then my daughter is 15 years old, and her name is McKenna, and she's in theater, and she's now diving into the fashion side, and so I didn't want my kids to worship idols. I just wanted them to be inspired by icons, and so that's the whole reason why I started the podcast. So, Ben, what advice would you have for Maddox and McKenna? And if you could use both their names, it would be awesome.
For Maddox, who's 12 and into sports, I think you said, and McKenna, who's into fashion, and she's 15. I think the most important thing you guys could be doing is to learn how to have good relationships and how to listen to your friends. So when your friends are going through hard times, you don't have to agree with what they perceive to be a problem, but acknowledging that this is real for your friends and saying, I don't know the answer, but I'll be with you. Like, I get it. I'm here to listen. I think that's tremendous. Learning how to ask curious questions. All right. I did a talk at my church recently. I was telling kiddos who were a little bit older than McKenna, like, how do you show up for your first interview? Here's the secret. Figure out 3 questions about the business or the person interviewing you, just about their life or the business. How do you guys make money? Who's your perfect customer? How did you get in this position? That will separate yourself. So those who will listen to their friends and be there, and those who will learn to talk to other people and ask curious questions about their lives, especially for you two, older people, like, they will be thrilled to have that conversation with you. Everything else is extra. Get those 2 things right. You'll have a happy life.
Ben, I'm excited to spend some time with you there in Salt Lake. If you aren't coming to NiftyCon and you're an attorney, you're missing out on spending time with Mr. Glass here. It's going to be incredible. I look forward to it. I look forward to being able to spend time with you, and it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
It's fun. I'm glad we were able to finally get our schedules to mesh, because we're both busy guys. Like, we do a lot of stuff, right? So looking forward to it. Anybody wants to come out a day early, we're organizing a 3-hour bike tour, of course, because that's what Mr. and Mrs. Glass do, bike tours of cities they've never been to.
Well, you're absolutely incredible. I would definitely want to have you on the show again. I'm going to ask you just in front of all the people if you'll come on again, but I'll make sure and schedule it because I can't be one of those. I can't be the first call that's not scheduled in 25 years. So I'll make sure that we get that scheduled, Ben. But it has been an absolute pleasure. Have a phenomenal day, and then I'll see you in Salt Lake. You're officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting.